have Hannah presenting the Retrieval market spec.
Hey everyone. I want to talk to you guys about a little thing that I worked on last week, which I call the Retrieval market spec. What it is it is a specification for the Filecoin retrieval market. And you might be like, well, we actually already have a Filecoin retrieval market. I know that I can personally say I've written software on such a thing. So this is a vision for what the Filecoin retrieval market could be or should be. To be clear, it's not my vision. There's always been a longer term vision for what Filecoin retrieval could do. And we weren't able to ship with the launch of mainnet like every single thing that we wanted to do. And there's actually a whole lot more that we'd love to do. And the sort of like long-term goal of the Filecoin retrieval market is eventually to sort of be a CDN for the decentralized web, to be a way for anyone who is browsing the decentralized web to be able to get content extremely quickly. But there's a lot of pieces that aren't there in order to get there. And actually, a lot of people have been working on this. A lot of people have come up with a lot of different ideas. We've worked internally. We worked with some external partners, Consensus, who else? ChainSafe, a number of other folks. So many that the first thing I did when I was writing this was write up a document of all the documents that exist out there about how we could build a retrieval market. We've even had our research groups on there. So there's a whole lot. And I did not attempt to come up with any new ideas per se, because so many people have done such wonderful work. But what I attempted to do was synthesize all of that into kind of a grand overview of what it is that we're trying to build and how we can go about building it, and to get as specific as possible in terms of how we would get from where we are today to where we'd like to be in a year and maybe afterwards. So you can think of this as sort of like a meta project proposal. It's not any team's work immediately, but several, probably a dozen small project proposals that emerge from this. So this is the retrieval market specification. This URL is a URL you can all access. I will share it there.
Yeah, we see a black screen.
What?
We see a black screen.
You see a black screen? Really? Is that everyone?
Yeah.
You can see your cursor moving, but no content.
So weird. Oh man, what a bummer. I haven't had this particular problem with Chrome in the past. Hold on. So this does not do.
Let's try unsharing and resharing, maybe.
Yeah, let's just do it. All right, we'll do that. Oh, so you didn't see my document with all the links. Wait, I thought I just did a stop share. Stop the share. Okay. Cool. And I feel like something has happened here that has taken away my permissions. I can definitely see that I can share a part of my desktop, and I think that's what I'm going to do because does everyone see that? Is that no?
Still a black screen.
Oh my God. I feel like I must have done some Mac upgrade accidentally and somehow messed with my screen permissions. So I can mess with this, but I also maybe want to do a.
I can present for you.
What?
If it's
the link. I said
oh right, that's true. Yeah, the only thing is I was going to click around on it, and I can tell people what to click on.
Be a robot.
Yeah. You can be my robot if you want. Who wants to be the robot? might be
the robot. I know.
You'll be the robot. All right. Go, Ayush.
Yeah, but
but I have to stop sharing.
Yeah. Also, is the link the one that you have in the demo doc, the Filecoin retrieval?
It is that one. Yes.
That's good. Let's go do that. Share screen.
Okay.
That guy. Yeah, that guy. Cool.
Woo! Awesome. Yay. Yeah, so you're gonna see here at the front, you just get a kind of like a grand overview in terms of the goals of the document. If you go ahead and click on the roadmap, yeah, you're gonna. So this is just a sort of like an overview of the roadmap for the retrieval market. You're gonna see there's a series of milestones, essentially 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then V2, which is really just unbounded, everything afterwards. And essentially our goal for V1, i.e. the 1 year milestone, is to get to a like MVP of a Web3 content delivery network, essentially to have all the components in place, if not the most amazing implementation of those components, so that all the different people who want to participate in a retrieval market could. I want to actually, if you wouldn't mind clicking on architectural overview on the left. Awesome, thank you. Oh yes, yeah, at the bottom of the roadmap, it says things are about to get pretty technical. Actually, I'm gonna try to keep this not too technical, and actually, like if you stick away from the components section of the doc, you can probably, there's a lot of stuff that like you don't have to be a programmer to read. But essentially the way I've kind of organized this is this actually to speak to that, is I've thought of the retrieval market as made up of sort of like high level actors doing different things that I call roles, which are like the high level functions of the retrieval market. So for example, a retrieval client is one role, a retrieval provider, the person who's providing data, is another role. And then below that, I've sort of broken the market into much smaller technical components, and different roles in the market are going to interact with those technical components in different ways. So you have your high level roles, and those are probably the things that I can explain to you in this call in a way that'll like, you'll be like, oh yes, I totally recognize what you're talking about. And then the components you'll probably recognize mostly if you've worked on something like that, some component in the existing stack that's similar to it. If you just want to click on how to read this spec, a couple of things though, if you do read this, and I encourage y'all, read it at your leisure, give me feedback. There's a couple things in each thing that you might be interested in. All the pages have a status, and like some of these pages were just me like pulling stuff out of my head, I think I'll say, where it's like, like it. Whether it'll actually land there is hard to say, but it might. But hopefully it will. There's a bunch of code in this spec, and it is compilable code, even though it has no implementation. I am not attempting to do a Filecoin spec and write the actual implementation in the spec till we end up with the actual implementation. Just one other. So let's just briefly click on the roles, and I'll talk a little bit about what those roles are, because it might be like, if those of you guys have never thought about like the retrieval market in the long term, what that might look like. The first two roles you might recognize are retrieval client and retrieval provider / miner. So the person who wants to fetch the data and the person who's giving you the data to fetch. Those two roles already exist, and they are best expressed by a Lotus node and a Lotus miner node. But then there's some other roles which are kind of like right now very primitive implementations are folded into running a Lotus node, but they will actually eventually be entirely separate people. One of them that does not exist at all is the so-called content provider. In a more like our current payment model is that the miner serves data and the person who fetches it pays for it. But probably a more likely model for the future is that that much more closely resembles how a CDN works, is someone who wants content to be available very quickly would pay a retrieval miner to provide it. So we call that person the content provider. That's the person who's like, I have a website and I want to make sure that everybody can get to it in a sub-millisecond time. So I'm going to pay a bunch of people to host my content so that you can get it quickly. Other people that are in the mix, a payment provider. We have really simple and really not well-developed components for payment in retrieval as is, but they actually are sufficiently slow that we find ourselves on this Filecoin golden path edging towards emphasizing free retrieval, because we don't want to block anything on chain operations. There are a lot of ways to get around that, and we just need to build a more complex solution. And it probably means that one person on this this network is just someone who's processing payments. And then the last person is a marketplace. This is the person who helps people connect people, helps clients find contact, helps people who are providing data advertise what their content is and advertise what they charge for new content, and then helping content providers find other providers on the network. I won't go into the deep specification for any of these roles, but I would love to click on components just briefly so I can talk a little bit about like this interesting API spec, the way these are written. So these components are like these are all like individual small technical software pieces that are going to need to either exist or are going to need to exist to fulfill all these roles. And if you go into the detailed descriptions for the roles, they specify all the components they're going to either run locally or interact with. One of the things that I really was interested in defining these components is that, first of all, I noticed that like other than a couple of them, everything is not Filecoin specific. The retrieval market is surprisingly not Filecoin specific, and it is possible we could potentially run it with a payment system running something other than Filecoin. I don't know if we'll ever do that, but I've kind of like identified that. The other thing about, and then I also, so then for these components, my idea here is that these are software systems that can be run either together on a machine or they could be run across an API, similar to the way the Lotus API and the Lotus Storage Miner API communicate across a process boundary. With all these components, I specified what their dependencies are, and then I came up with a Go API specification for it. And the Go API specification actually follows the same JSON RPC specification that Lotus uses, so that theoretically these would be easy to break up into to run across, communicate across process boundaries or the internet, and I made a couple modifications to the Lotus spec just because to allow some flexibility. But yeah, you can see there's a whole list there below of the different components. If you click on some of them will look really familiar. If you click on like Filecoin chain right to the left on the, yeah, there you go. And then you look at this API for Filecoin chain, you scroll down, keep scrolling down all the way like to the bottom there where you get to the methods. Yay, if you look at that API right there, if you look at that, it looks exactly like a Lotus Gateway API. So this is essentially, it's basically, it's the Lotus Gateway API minus a couple methods because we don't need them. You can say that so that we have a notion of a Filecoin chain, and this is the person who runs the chain and like submits messages and validates, and tells you about the state. And so it's like this effort to really break things up so that you can, run little parts in for each of the nodes. And just as a final example, if you click on like roles and you go over to the retrieval client, you'll see that like by doing these, you can see that like, okay, what are they for this retrieval client? What do we actually need to run locally, right? Well, technically all we need is a data transfer protocol, a way to, a protocol for exchanging payments, which is the retrieval protocol in a wallet. And we don't need all those other things that we have in Lotus. We could communicate remotely. And that's probably where we'll head eventually in terms of like putting this in IPFS. And in fact, if you scroll down, you'll see for each component, there's a roadmap. And I believe the 1-year one probably says we are going to try to put retrieval into IPFS in some fashion. So anyway, it's like supposed to give you a real specific way to get from here to there. This is like, there's a ton of stuff in here, and so I'm not going to go through the rest of it. I'm sure I'm over time already. But I encourage you to go check it out. I don't know how public this is because I suspect it's not private, but it hasn't been reviewed. So I suspect if you are watching this on YouTube and you are not a Protocol Labs employee, feel free to browse at your leisure, but no, it may not be the final way things are. So yeah.
Cool, very cool. Yeah, so this is a very exciting work, and I'm very glad to see that like long-term vision is still happening, because sometimes it can feel, at least for me, that yeah we're very much focused on the day-to-day, but like stuff like this is probably going to be what's most important towards the broader product market fit mission. One question. So I wanted to push a little bit on the, how much of this is actually Filecoin specific? How much of this vision would actually require any changes to the Filecoin protocol, if any? And if not, where will all of this work be happening, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, so there are the specification as written works with the Filecoin protocol, or as specified by like the actors in state machine today. A lot of this is taking components that are in Lotus or elsewhere and breaking them out. I mean, some of them are already broken out, like, data transfer fill markets already exist as independent repos. They don't exist very well in their own process boundary. So there's some interesting stuff around that. And you'll see, like, if you look at the data transfer API, it's been modified so that like it would actually work well over an RPC. So it's probably going to be happening, in a bunch of different places. And there's a bunch of different suggestions for how to assemble different components. One, for example, a retrieval provider / miner. Right now, the only version of that is a Lotus storage miner. Right. However, there is no reason you need to be storing data in with like storage deals in Filecoin to serve it for retrieval. And so one of the big, the immediate tasks, if you look at like the retrieval miner or retrieval provider role, is that like, it's like, there's a suggestion that we could break this out and have it run either just on an IPFS node or something else. And yes, so the answer to where these things run is like everywhere. Like hopefully hopefully the retrieval client is not even an IPFS node eventually. The retrieval client eventually is the web browser. Right. But it's just a question of like, this is part of the goal here is to take things and push them into different, to make them more componentized so that we can start to figure out how to build different solutions that aren't tied to a Lotus node or, I mean, most likely we'll be running a Lotus Lite node for at least a lot of these for now, but yeah.
Cool. One follow-up question. Sorry. This is a bit more prickly, but a lot of this is kind of like trying to hit a similar piece of the puzzle as like what the ARG with Jeremy is doing on Estuary and so on. Is there an overlap between them at all, or is this like two different approaches to solve similar or different problems?
Yeah, that is a super good question to me, and I do not have a lot of. Part of my problem is I do not have a lot of information about what Estuary. So you'll actually see Estuary referred to here in a couple things, because like Estuary is probably the best example of a retrieval client that is not a Lotus node. Right. However, does that actually work? I would be amazed if that works. Okay, maybe not. I can tell you where it's referenced. If you look at, I think you actually went by one of them. But in any case, if you look at the roles for retrieval client, yeah. There you go. 6 months prototype. See, there you go. That being said, I don't have a lot of information about Estuary. I don't feel like most of us do. It would be really helpful if we could get some of that, because I don't want to like overlap on work, but I also can't plan against work that I don't know is what it is. Other than like knowing that there's a repo out there. So yeah, that'd be great.
That's questions. Sorry, I'll stop sharing.
This is awesome, Hannah. This is super, super cool. And I think also the piece that I love the most is kind of like taking this giant evolving space and getting enough clarity so that it can be broken down into different sub pieces and different milestones, many of which can be done by different groups in parallel, which I think is phenomenal and the best way to make progress here.
Yeah. No, I mean, my hope is that there's some of these brainstorm components, like you could be totally handed to like a dev grant who like wants to spend a whole year like coming up with cool stuff around it. So yeah, in any case, yeah, hopefully this will get us off the ground. Obviously, I know we have a million other things that we're trying to keep moving forward on at the same time. So
yeah, that gets to the question that Steve Lepke asked in chat, which is what are next steps?
Yeah. So I think the immediate things around retrieval, I know that we're trying, I think it sounds like our immediate priority is to satisfy this golden path. And so I suspect that will be the first parts that we do ourselves. Next steps are that It's a great question, and it may not be one that I am the best person to answer, but my belief is that next steps would be that some of the PM and high-level decision makers and tech leads, W3DT leads review this and start to identify like where they want to prioritize things and where they want to make projects out of things, and then people would write up more detailed project proposals, I think. Oh, discuss with stakeholders. Yes, so we'll see. It's an all evolving answer that I will probably answer offline.
That's good. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was very cool. Thank you, Hannah.